Thank you for joining us for this exclusive interview with Pastor Толхурст. My name is Abel currently serving as the General Secretary of the North New South Wales Conference. And I have this privilege of sitting down here with Pastor Толхурст and asking him a number of questions, because it's really important to get to know the man behind this series entitled The Gospel in the Setting of the Last Day Events. Pastor Толхурст, thank you for giving us the time. Thank you for your passion for ministry. Thank you for your many years of service. And in this time together with our viewers, I'd like to ask you a few questions that will help us know more about who you are and how God has worked in your life. So let's begin with the very beginning. I understand that you were born not in Australia, but in a far, far country. Yes. Tell us more about that.
I was born in a small island kingdom in the Pacific known as Tonga. As far as I know, it's the only nation in the whole of the Pacific that has its own king. And they've maintained a royal family there for many generations. My parents went out there as missionaries. My father went there first in 1915 with his first wife. He and she had graduated from Avondale College in 1914. After their marriage and honeymoon, they went straight to Tonga. And we're out there, and the Spanish flu came round at the end of World War I, and in January, February, early in 1915, they both got sick. And to make a long story short, she died, and he conducted the funeral for his own wife because there was nobody else there to do it.
Wow.
He then came back to Australia, worked in the Victorian Conference for a few years, and courted my mother, who was a younger sister of his first wife. He knew a good family when he found it, you see. And they got married and went back out to Tonga.
And that's where you were born?
And that's when I was born. In fact, they had 6 children of their own, and they adopted one, so that made a family of 7. And 5 of us were born in Tonga, because he was out there for nearly 20 years in all.
Now tell me, I'm really curious, have you had an opportunity, a chance to meet the King of Tonga while you were there?
I had the opportunity to meet the King of Tonga when I was working in Papua New Guinea, because he came to Papua New Guinea to Port Moresby, and I was lecturing at the Pacific Adventist College, which is now Pacific Adventist University, and the Tongan staff member we had and a group of Tongan students at the college were all invited to go down to meet the King of Tonga in Port Moresby, at Government House, or the residence of the Prime Minister, or the Governor General, I've forgotten which it was now. And of course, being born in Tonga, I was included. I went down and I met him, shook his hand.
That's great. So would you be able to share with our viewers, how old were you when you sort of left Tonga and moved on?
I was around about 9 years of age when we left Tonga for the last time. And we moved as a family to New Zealand. And my father was engaged in work there for a number of years, working for the Maori people of North New Zealand. And I had my rest of my primary school education and all of my high school education in New Zealand.
Now, look, I know you as Pastor Толхурст, and I believe many other people know you as Pastor Толхурст. Would you be able to tell us where you've done your theological trainings?
Yes, after I finished high school in New Zealand, I went to Longbourn College, and in 1 year there, I completed the first year of their theological training program. Then I came across to Avondale College here in Australia, and enrolled in the teaching course and the ministerial course. I graduated from both courses at the end of 2 years. But in the second year that I was here, they upgraded the theological course and introduced what they call the LTH, or the Licentiate of Theology. So I went back and did a 3rd year at Avondale, and I happened to be the first one to get that qualification from Avondale College.
There you go.
But I didn't feel particularly ready to go into the ministry at that stage, because I had my eyes set on being a Bible teacher in college. And I knew that I'd have to get some qualifications to make that possible. So I then made my way to the United States and took a BA degree at Pacific Union College in California, and then got married in Canada to my wife, who came from New Zealand. And then went to the seminary in Washington, D.C., before Andrews University was formed.
Wow.
And I completed a master's degree there. Then we went to India, and the reason why we got such a quick call to go to India is because political situation in India was making it difficult for Americans to get visas to go into India at that time. And so the General Conference turned to England and to Canada and to Australia. Yeah, to get missionaries to go there. And so having just graduated, I was roped in.
So for the sake of our viewers, would it be fair to say that India was your first district where you pastored?
Yeah, it was my first appointment in the ministry was India.
What a way to start your journey in ministry, isn't it? Now,
Yes,
if you were to choose one experience from your time in India, an experience that really trialed your faith and it sort of made you wonder and you ask, where is God in this? What experience would it be?
I suppose one of the most difficult tasks that I was given in India was to run an evangelistic campaign in a city that had no membership whatsoever of the Adventist Church.
Unentered area.
Unentered city of about 500,000 people. The administrators had their eyes set on the city for some time, and they invited me to go there and to run the first public campaign by a national or an expatriate in that city. And they put a colporteur in there to try and find some interests to bring them along to the meeting. They had a son in their family. Their son was the only one that was baptized at the end of that program. There was no fruitage from the mission apart from the son of an Adventist colporteur. Very disappointing.
Yeah,
but today we have a center there, not a mission or conference center, but a district office and a school. And I had the privilege of visiting that school with my daughter Sharon some years ago when we were there, and they've got a school of about 200 or 300 students, and there is an established church there today.
Look, we both know, and definitely some of our viewers would agree with us, that the seed of truth was planted in people's hearts at that very first mission in that city. Because the promise from 1 Corinthians is that whatever we do for the Lord is never in vain.
Yes.
So how many years were you there in India for?
We were there for 5.5 years, and my son and 2 daughters were all born in India.
So you've got, you were born in Tonga, some of your children were born in India.
All of them were born in India. And my wife was born in New Zealand, so isn't it strange how we all came to be in the same family?
Yes, that's wonderful.
But there, yes, international family.
So tell me, this passion for ministry, service, for God's kingdom, is it shared by your siblings as well?
Well, they all love the Lord and are all in the church, and I'm thankful for that. And they do their part and they can in helping out in church work and so on. Yes. My daughter Sharon has been a teacher in denominational employment. Yeah. And yes.
Now, before we bring this short interview to an end, can you share with our viewers maybe about your ministry in the South Pacific Division? Some of the highlights of your service. I came back from India after 5.5 years in India, went back to America for a year of further study, and then we were appointed to North New Zealand Conference, and I pastored 7 churches in North New Zealand Conference over the next 6 years, on and off. At one time I had 4 churches at the same time to keep me busy. And then I was called to come and teach Bible at Avondale College in the theology department, and I did that for 11 years. And then after a year in the library, I was called to be the head of the theology department at Fulton College in Fiji. I was there for 3 years. And then they opened up Pacific Adventist College, which is now Pacific Adventist University in Port Moresby area in Papua New Guinea. And I was appointed as the first head of the theology department there. And I did that work for 12.5 years. So in a way you could say that your dream became a reality, your dream of teaching the scripture.
Yes, I wanted to teach Bible in college, but God saw that I needed some field experience beforehand, because when I came to teach at Avondale, the students appreciated the fact that I could bring to my classes first-hand experiences of soul-winning work in the field, and they appreciated that.
Yeah, definitely. And now, as a final question for you, Pastor Толхурст, I imagine that in a formal way you've retired some years ago from, we can say, ministry,
Yes,
but in reality,
yes.
I know you've never retired.
Well,
So what have you been doing
about
since?
25 years ago I retired.
Or you've tried to retire. So what have you been doing for the last 25 years?
I didn't know what I would do in retirement because most ministers will do something in retirement years. But the door opened up for me here at Memorial Church to give a series on end time events. I gave 18 lectures here in this building.
Where we are today, you know,
To the
Avondale Memorial Church,
on Sabbath afternoon, and they were so well received that I went to the local conference president, Pastor Peter Cahoon, and he gave me the green light to take the series to the churches of the conference, and that broadened out. And so now I've been in every conference in Australia except Tasmania and South Australia, 80 churches preaching on end time events and the gospel in the setting of end time events, much to the appreciation of the church members. And then the door opened for me further to go overseas, and I've been in 20 countries overseas since I retired, preaching not only to church members but also to groups of pastors in various countries, Europe and Africa and South America and Asia. And that's what I've been doing in retirement, and I've enjoyed it, and I trust it's been a blessing to those that have heard the lectures.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, as a fellow laborer in God's field, I want to thank you for the trail you've created before us, for the work you've done. I want to thank you for your service. And I want to encourage our viewers to take the time to view the lectures you have prepared, the sermons you have prepared, the gospel in the setting of last day events. Thank you, Pastor Толхурст.
Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this presentation, it is from my series, The Gospel in the Setting of End Time Events. See all of these videos in the playlist shown now. Should you have any questions, feel free to contact your local Seventh-day Adventist minister or church. Please see the description below the video for more information.